When the truth is heard and people in society are in a position to hear that truth clearly without bias or distortion, then in general society will be just and will benefit from a culture of justice. People will, in response to their consciences and a duty to do what is morally right, live by that truth and act morally. However, a culture of injustice and immorality takes over when lies are prevalent and when the truth is distorted. It begins with lies and misinformation and results in the breakdown of civilized society. We are seeing this in evidence today when we examine the climate change issue. Finding the truth about climate change is not difficult. There is a wealth of scientific research that has been done on the subject over the last few decades. I am mainly going to focus on the reports provided by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. Our problem today is that there is also a lot of lies and misinformation regarding climate change. I will begin this presentation by talking about the truth, and later we'll talk about the lies. Now, there are many environmental issues in the world today, including the disposal of waste, the disappearance of habitats, and many more. But the purpose of this talk is to focus on a particular one, and that is climate change. That's not to say that all environmental issues are mutually exclusive, because there are in fact overlaps between them, but our focus is climate change. Greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, such as carbon dioxide, water and methane, radiate energy in all directions, including downwards to the Earth's surface. The greenhouse effect is a natural process whereby the atmosphere keeps the planet's surface warm, whereas without any atmosphere it would be unbearably cold. However, too much greenhouse gas in the atmosphere means that the effect becomes more severe, and the planet's surface heats up beyond natural levels, which affects the planet's capability to sustain life. Too much heat being radiated back down to the planet upsets the ecosystem. Icebergs melt, causing sea levels to rise. Trees burn more often, releasing more carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. In 1988, due to concerns about climate change and the need for authentic information, the United Nations Environment Programme and the World Meteorological Organization founded the IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. Its purpose is to provide policymakers and governments with regular scientific assessments on climate change, on its implications and potential future risks, as well as to put forward adaptation and mitigation options. How this works is that scientists contribute studies and findings to the IPCC, which are validated and approved by other scientists, and the IPCC produces assessment reports from them. These scientists are climatologists, meteorologists, oceanographers, and so on, not just any old scientists, but actual experts in the area of climate change. So I think we can trust this organisation to speak the truth. So far, 5 main reports have been produced, with the last being in 2014. In December 2007, the IPCC was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize, I quote, for their efforts to bring up and disseminate greater knowledge about man-made climate change, and to lay the foundations for the measures that are needed to counteract such change. Scientists are in agreement about climate change and its effects in our world today. All agree that it is anthropogenic, that is, caused by humans, and that it is an extremely urgent issue that needs to be addressed as a matter of emergency. You would be hard-pressed to find a real climatologist who thinks it's false or unimportant. Here are some of the highlights from their first report. This is dated 1990. Emissions resulting from human activities are substantially increasing the atmospheric concentrations of the greenhouse gases, resulting on average in an additional warming of the Earth's surface. Global mean surface air temperature has already increased by 0.3 to 0.6 degrees Celsius over the last 100 years. Under a business-as-usual scenario, global mean temperature will increase by about 0.3 degrees Celsius per decade during the 21st century. So this was stated in 1990. Even in 1990 then, the IPCC knew for certain that human activities were the cause of global warming. That was over 30 years ago, and a whole generation has passed since then. I recall in the 1990s, one of the key messages that environmentalists were saying was that we need to take action for the sake of our children and future generations. Those children are now born and are aware of our lack of action over the last 30 years. They are quite rightly concerned about the lack of action to mitigate climate change. Let's have a look at the fourth assessment report, published in 2007. Warming of the climate system is unequivocal, as is now evident from observations of increases in global average air and ocean temperatures, widespread melting of snow and ice, and rising global average sea level. Most of the global average warming over the last 50 years is due to human activities. Anthropogenic, human-caused, warming and sea level rise is expected to continue for centuries due to the timescales associated with climate processes and feedbacks. What this last one means is that there is a delay before we see the effects of our greenhouse gas emissions. This means we don't see the full effects of them until years later, centuries. When you apply the brakes to a moving object like a bicycle or a car, it continues to run due to all the force that's been applied to it up until then. Climate change effects are similar to this. Let's have a look at feedbacks. Now, oceans and forests are carbon sinks. They absorb the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere and convert it to healthy oxygen. As the Earth warms, carbon sinks in the land and ocean disappear, and so more carbon dioxide remains in the atmosphere, which in turn contributes to further warming. This is known as a feedback loop, whereby global warming continues unchecked. Warming caused by carbon dioxide emissions over several centuries is irreversible unless measures are taken to remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Now this has kicked in. This positive feedback loop is happening now. And so climate change will now continue, and the Earth will continue to get hotter. What we need to do now is find ways to actively remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. As a matter of urgency then, we need to stop any activities that are continuing to add more carbon dioxide to the atmosphere. Unfortunately, those actions, such as burning fossil fuels, are continuing even today, adding even more to this feedback loop and causing it to accelerate. Let's continue on with assessment report number 4. These are from sections 6.1 to 6.3. Some planned adaptation of human activities is occurring now. More extensive adaptation is required to reduce vulnerability to climate change. Unmitigated climate change would, in the long term, be likely to exceed the capacity of natural, managed, and human systems to adapt. Let's think about that. Natural systems will not help us. And even human systems to mitigate the effects will not help us, or will take extreme measures. So we need to stop this before it's too late. Beyond a certain point, there is no way to stop it.